welcome for the very first time to Neuroconversant Leadership, which up until now has been How to Talk to Weirdos. We talk about effective communication, especially in the STEM workplace. I'm Jeremy Doran. I work with STEM professionals and help them become better leaders. Very excited today because recently I had an episode about how to use your voice effectively, and now we have an actual expert. Nic Redman, welcome.
Hi, I'm so excited to be introduced as an actual expert. That is me.
Yes. Well, tell us a little bit about what you do and about your podcast, please.
So my podcast is called the Voice Coach Podcast, and it ultimately is a lot of mini episodes on the voice training process that I work through with people, and also little FAQs, basically the questions that I get asked most of the time when it comes to communication, voice, speaking and recording. My work tends to focus a lot with people on microphones. So for in corporate environments, that tends to be public speaking, but also a lot of the time corporate podcasts as well, both internally and externally. So I really am focused on helping people embrace the voice that they have and use it in the environment that they need to use it in the most effective way without compromising or sacrificing who they are.
Mm-hmm. Lovely. I heard you on a podcast recently, and it was about health in your voice. And as luck would have it, I have myself a chest cold right now, so I am dealing with that.
Oh, no. It's always the way, isn't it? Well, I hope you're feeling okay. Stay hydrated, please.
I've got some hot water with honey. Great. And another bottle of just straight water.
2 vessels. That's impressive.
Yeah. So what happened in the episode a few weeks back is I was noticing that there are a lot of male actors who have very distinct voices. And I was looking into what makes them so distinct. And I broke it down to pitch, pace, pauses, tone, and inflection. But I know that you do some work with corporations, and I'm interested in some of your perspectives on how people can use their voice better, whether it's just in a meeting, one-to-one, whatever the situation is, so that they can, convey meaning well and capture people's attention and anything else that you can think of for how a voice can be used well.
Now, I think, this may be controversial or not, but I think we focus for corporate communication a little bit too much on the separate bits that make up speaking and what we hear. So yes, we can break it down into pitch and inflection and pace and tone and variety and all that kind of stuff. But it can get a little bit prescriptive and can get a little bit kind of, well, I need to improve this one thing or I need to change this one thing in order to be a good communicator. I think the thing we need to be focusing on more, and where my coaching speaks from most of the time, is about the impact you're trying to have and how you're trying to make the person listening feel. Now, this doesn't have to be all like emotional and, intense. It's just about knowing that you're there speaking for a reason. When it comes to public speaking, the old adage is always, why are you there saying the information? Why could it not just have been sent in an email? There's got to be a reason for the person as a human needing to be there in order to share the information, right? Otherwise, just send it in an email. Who cares? They can read it. And that, to me, is about connection and emotional impact. Whether you're trying to sell something money-wise, sell an idea or a concept, share some thoughts, collaborate with other people. Ultimately, when I'm communicating, I'm trying to make somebody else feel something so that I can get what I want or help them get what they need. So for me, it starts with that. And then we work backwards and we go, well, what is missing from the voice, or what can we do to the voice to help you have that emotional impact on somebody? And that nearly always comes down to this idea of preparing your voice properly. So for me, that's where I, as a voice technician, because my training is master's level in the sort of technical elements of vocal anatomy and vocal pedagogy, is what do we need to put in that little warm-up or in the little bits of like technical elements of the voice in order to make sure that your voice is working efficiently, it's working expressively and engagingly, so that you can have the emotional impact on the person you're talking to.
So that's interesting because you hear it for a lot of voice actors or people who do other things to do a warm-up, but you're recommending someone in a corporate setting who's going to just meet with their board or their team do vocal warm-ups as well. Is that right?
Yes. And I think the term vocal warm-up is kind of terrifying for a lot of corporate folks because they're like, but I don't have loads of time, or what does that even entail, or isn't that a bit actory or weird, or, I don't think corporate folks class themselves as like professional voice users, as actors or voiceover artists, or even podcasters might. But my approach to that is, it doesn't have to take long. It doesn't have to be a load of weird lying on the floor, breathing and humming and getting peculiar. It can be some really quick, easy tongue stretches, face release, body release, understanding how your breath works. A few exercises you could do in the toilets or in your office or maybe outside, depending on where you work, in order to make sure that you're dealing with, most of the time, the element of nerves or the status of the situation, and ensuring that that doesn't get in the way of clear communication and effective, emotionally engaging communication. So just a couple of exercises to release some stuff, really. I should probably try and come up with a less actory term for it rather than voice warm-up.
So when you are talking about a voice warm-up or whatever new word we're going to come up for that is, do they have to include sounds? If someone were in a place where they don't feel like they can and ah or do other things, is it something that you can do in public silently, or do you need to be able to make noises?
There are definitely certain things you can do that don't make any noise at all in order to warm up and prepare your voice. I've actually done them on public transport before, like on the train or on the bus or walking down the street. Some of making noise in a warm-up for voice can come right at the end. A lot of the time it's actually just, stretches or releasing bits of your anatomy so that they move slightly more easily. Some of it's actually body work. So if you're someone who likes going for a walk or doing a run or a bit of yoga or even swimming or some kind of physical activity, you can involve that as part of your warm-up. If you get up in the morning and you do a bit of stretching, adds on some hums and that gets your voice going. If you're in the office about to go in to pitch to the board, a few gentle shoulder rolls and a little neck stretch, that's really good for releasing nervous tension, anxiety, energy, and helping your voice feel clearer and more expressive. Same with, your tongue and your lips, a little bit of like chewing the mouth or stretching your tongue. You could do that behind your hand.
I was going to say that must have gotten you some good looks on the subway.
Oh, yes. And that is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to peculiar exercises. I have to say, that was what was slightly beneficial during COVID. Everyone had masks on. So I could just warm up behind my mask.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So there's lots of things you can do, that are quiet.
So the warm-ups aren't just for your vocal cords. They are for a lot of the things around it. And it sounds like some of it is to just release tension. Is that right?
Yeah. So voice is a completely holistic practice. And I think that's one of the things sometimes it gets forgotten about, is that it's body, mind, voice. Your breath happens in your body. Your breath is incredibly emotionally connected to you as a human and the environment and the situation you're currently experiencing. And it's mindset as well. So if you're nervous or excited about a big pitch, that will impact your breath and your body, which will impact your voice. So it can be also connected to some exercises just to sort of settle your brain a little bit, and give yourself some good positive messages while you're focusing on your out breath to settle that system, while you're releasing the shoulders. Even a few sighs. Even, Jeremy, yawns are incredibly good for releasing your voice. So if you're bored at work, use that.
But
use
just
that to stretch.
don't do it around other people, because yawns are contagious, and then everyone around you will start yawning.
Would be a good way to find out which of your colleagues are psychopaths, because apparently if you don't yawn when someone else yawns, it means you're a psychopath. So
that's
a little bit of
very
trivia
good
there.
to know. Great test. I know for me, I've done some recordings before where someone was listening and they said, why don't you start over as if you were in the middle? Because I would start with one probably more monotone, and then it took me a little while to kind of relax into it. Is that something that normally happens where as people are talking, they relax into it and you're just trying to shorten that period up, or are there differences in what you would do?
Yeah, I think it depends on the environment. Certainly some people warm up as they go in. Some people get more and more tense because it's not going the way they thought it would, or the situation's bigger than they felt it might be. And, so every situation's different. But there's certainly an element of warming up before helps you find the energy to get going nice and quickly, and potentially cut out that bit where you feel you have to catch up with yourself or warm into things. Like if you do the warm up before, then your performance is going to be better. That's why athletes warm up.
Yeah,
to get them ready to peak performance,
Yeah, once things start going poorly because maybe you weren't warmed up, it's much harder to get them back on track than it is to just stay on track.
Yeah, it really is. Once you're rolling down that hill in front of the whole C-suite,
yeah,
or whoever it happens to be, it can feel really out of control, and that does tend to sort of compound itself a bit.
And I know for me, once I am in that kind of stressful situation, my voice goes up. So I think I speak from higher up and the voice itself goes up. Is that common?
Yeah, so pitch is all about how quickly the vocal folds are vibrating. So the higher in pitch you are, the more oscillations of the vocal folds you get. And they're longer and more stretched. So the voice mechanism tilts basically and stretches the vocal folds, and they vibrate more quickly. When you're tense, that happens because of tension in the vocal mechanism. So people sometimes get a bit higher and kind of stuck in that place where they can't really get down from, because they're really, like nervous tension or excited tension. For your body, it's all the same reaction, whether it feels exciting and brilliant or whether it feels nervous. It's the same physical reaction, and it's the tension that nerves create that cause the high pitch.
Interesting. If we can go back a little bit, you said that when you work with people in corporations, it's about the emotion and what you can share, and then you work backwards from that to see what's kind of missing to fill those things in. What are common things that you find are missing?
So I think the main things it comes back to tend to be pitch, and I think actually it can all come under one word, and that's variety. So people tend to either get stuck in a speaking rhythm or stuck in a narrow pitch range. So they either lose expression via pitch range and using a wide variety of notes and tonal colour, or they get stuck in a nervous or excited kind of speaking rhythm. So it's usually about understanding how we can use the different sounds within the words to change the rhythm. So expression isn't all about range. It's also about, as in pitch range, high notes and low notes. It's also about how you use the sort of rhythmic part of the melody. And so if you're saying the phrase, "We've seen a 50% increase in expenditure this quarter," he says, plucking a corporate phrase out of the air.
Sounded perfect.
Yep, great. It's like I've done this before. Then instead of just saying, "We've seen a 50% increase in expenditure this quarter," you can use the E sounds because they're longer. Like, "We've seen a 50% increase in expenditure." Or if it's if you want to get something slightly, you could use the sort of the quick, shorter kind of consonant and vowel sounds. "We've seen a 50% increase in expenditure." So you can lean into the more percussive nature of it, depending on the emotion you want to elicit. Instead of what you tend to get with most traditional public speaking coaching, less so now, things are changing, but it used to be like, "Start at the bottom of the stairs and go up the stairs and then come down the stairs." And you're like, why? Like, all of the choices you make as a speaker have to be made for a reason. So why are you going high? Why are you going low? Don't just do it because somebody said it makes your voice more interesting, because that's not how we communicate as humans. That's not how natural, authentic communication works. Like when I'm talking to my son, trying to get him to put his pajamas on or get dressed for school, I'm not going, please put your pajamas on. I'm going, please put your pajamas on. Like, I'm not making those choices. For the love of God, it's taken 9 hours to get to this point. I'm not going, I should go high and then I should go low because then he'll really understand that I'm angry. Like, my body knows how to get me there, right? Because I have a very specific emotional intention, which is get into bed so I can have a cup of tea. Sorry, I got too carried away there with the scenario I'd set up. But the point is,
a good one.
It's about understanding that there's more than just highs and lows to find variety. And the variety that we find has to be connected to an authentic desire to make somebody feel something. Otherwise, it's fake.
I grew up not being very expressive at all, either in my face or my voice. And I'm the youngest of 10 kids. And what I learned was that letting people know how you feel can be used against you. So I learned to not share. So I got very good at not expressing with either my voice or my face. And I need to remind myself that it's okay to be more expressive. Do you find that that is the case where people are just not letting their emotion out and they need to do something to allow that to happen?
Yeah. Firstly, thank you for sharing. I think nearly every voice hang-up I come up against can be tied back to a childhood habit because of the family you've grown up in. There's a remarkable kind of lady who, a voice coach from like forever. She's sadly passed away now, but she's called Cicely Berry, and she talks a lot about this connection between, you know, your voice is ultimately a collection of everything you have experienced to date. I grew up in a very loud Irish family, and if you didn't speak, you didn't get heard. So, like, that has definitely cultivated the voice I have, and the fact that I now speak for a living gives me a real empowerment in my voice, and the fact that people hire me because of my accent, and people hire me because they know I'm a decent speaker. So you're not on your own there, and a lot of people in business also have those kinds of stories. Now, the interesting thing is a lot of the time their childhood and their upbringing and their education have also led them to where they are professionally in terms of the job they have, the person they are, and the reason they're in that role. So it's always quite interesting to then not separate that from their voice, but try and get them to explore the bits of their voice that have been dormant for a while and give them permission to make sound and permission to sound more female and not speak low because people say it's more commanding, and give them permission to explore all the expression that they have. So a lot of the time it's about release, whether it's emotional release, tension release physically in the body, emotional tension release, it's all connected. There's a fine line between what I do and therapy.
Yep.
So I hold space for a lot of things.
I do a lot of leadership coaching, and more than one of them has referred to me as their therapist because it all ties together.
It really does. And, you know, obviously I speak a lot to the female experience because that's my lived experience, but it happens a lot with men too. Men who have, you know, habitually depressed their larynx to sound more manly or to sound bigger or to sound more authoritative because that's the way people have said they should. You know, and then they find they're really tense or lacking expression, or people now say I'm monotone, and that's because for the last 30 years they've been like pushing their tongue root down and they can't get any movement in their voice anymore. Sound like my dad. So, like, it happens on all ends of and positions on the gender spectrum, no matter what you identify with or how you vocally present, you know.
Are there any exercises you do to help people figure out how to release that part of themselves?
Emotionally or physically?
Either one or both.
Both. The main one to gain the ability to have variety and movement is tongue root and jaw, actually. So most people who are struggling with lack of vocal variety or are getting feedback that they are monotone or repetitive or not engaging enough or not expressive enough or boring to listen to, however it is expressed, is jaw release and tongue tension release. So a lot of jaw release exercises, a lot of massaging the tongue, stretching the tongue, feeling that extra space in the mouth, getting the larynx used to moving up and down. So a lot of pitch glides and working that in a slightly more stretchy way.
This is going to be available on YouTube, or you can see it on Spotify. Can you lead us through a couple of things that people can use?
Always. It's always a pleasure. Okay, strap in. This is where I get to show my epic faces. By the way, I have tongue release and jaw release courses on my website, which are like short courses, which are really good for this kind of thing. So if you do try it and you think, oh, that feels interesting or intriguing or lovely, then that's definitely what you should do. So let's start with tongue release then. So which will I do? Let's do the one that I demoed earlier and you were like, oh my gosh, I bet that got you the peculiar looks on the bus. So a really nice tongue stretch to stretch out the tongue root. The tongue is directly attached to the larynx, right? So if your tongue is tense, then your larynx can't move as freely, and then you don't get as much high notes and low notes and vocal variety. So whether they're like fake high notes or low notes or real emotionally connected ones, you can't find them. So let's do that tongue stretch. So you're going to put the tip of your tongue behind your bottom teeth, nice and gently. If this is the floor of your mouth and these are your teeth and this is the tongue, we're going to do a movement that kind of bridges forward like this. So it's like a stretch. So you'll notice I'm going to allow my jaw to drop and let that stay released down and just stretch my tongue with my tongue tip behind my bottom teeth through with the space in my teeth. And it might feel that like your jaw wants to bounce back up. So just allow it to stay down if you can. It might also feel like you're pushing your tongue tip into the bottom teeth quite a bit. So try and keep that contact nice and gentle and only stretch forward as much as you can without feeling that you're putting too much pressure on the bottom teeth.
So no pain, no gain isn't the way to go for this one?
No, we like ease. We don't like to have pain.
All right.
You might feel a little pull, a gentle pull at the back of the tongue, and that's okay because that's the stretch. Some people also feel like this makes them gag a little bit.
Oh.
So that's a good one. Another good one. How did it feel?
I think I was pressing too hard into my teeth. So I
That's very good awareness.
needed to
Well done.
relax.
Ah, there you go. Just try a little less hard. Try less. And another nice one for the tongue.
Every corporation's motto, try less.
Just try less. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I'm rocking
relax.
in like, hi guys. Nah, just do less, bibs. Let your tongue lie out on the bottom, on your bottom lip. It'll get more glamorous. That's it. Like a fat slug. Then you're going to speak through days of the week, months of the year, count 1 to 10. Monday, Tuesday, letting your tongue stay out. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. January, you're going to do it with me.
Okay.
January.
Anyway,
Don't leave me hanging. February, March,
April, May,
June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
6, 7, 8, 9,
10.
10. It is really hard not to pull your tongue back in.
Right? Yeah.
To leave it out there was very challenging.
That's often a sign. There's a little bit of gripping in the back of the tongue. So what we learn from that is that this is one you could do every day and eventually it'll feel a little easier.
Good one. I like it.
That's a nice one for the tongue root.
Good. So can you tell us a little bit more about how to find you? Your webpage, podcast, all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Easiest thing is probably go to my book website, which is onthemicbook.com. And that will take you to my website and you can get everything there. I'm on Instagram at Nic Red Voice. And my podcast is called The Voice Coach Podcast.
Lovely. I'm going to put all that in the show notes with links so that people can go and find you. Before we wrap up with the 3 standard questions, are there any topics I didn't bring up that you think would be of interest to the audience? Or that you want to talk about for that matter?
I think the only thing I really like to try and advocate for in corporate environments is that your voice is valid. There has historically been this idea that people need to speak a certain way in order to be taken seriously, to have authority, and to be listened to. And I think we're hopefully moving into worlds where that's less necessary, those kind of archaic beliefs. But I just urge everybody to try and get comfortable with and explore the voice that they have and feel empowered to use that, rather than trying to sound like something they're not.
That's a good one. One thing that I talk about, the people who you can tell are the most confident are the ones who are willing to ask questions, even if they seem like dumb questions. So some portion of it is just letting go. Like, if you're confident and you ask what everyone else thinks is a silly question, they're going to be happy because it almost guaranteed wasn't. Someone else had the same question and you're the one willing to do it. So being able to relax and be yourself, it's hard to do, but it really does show the confidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, then we're going to dig into the final 3 questions for you. First one's part A and B. What is a place you have traveled to and loved, and a place you have not yet been but want to go?
So the place I traveled to and loved is my sort of childhood family summer holiday. And it's also where I got engaged when I brought my husband for the first time and my son. It's called Barley Cove, and it's a little place right on the edge of Ireland in the southwest.
Nice. And where have you not yet been but want to go?
I'd really like to go to... Well, there's lots of places, actually. I'd quite like to go to Japan because I love Japanese food. And I'd also really like to see a lot more of Scandinavia.
Nice. I lived in Italy and traveled around Europe for a year, and surprisingly, Finland was just about my favorite place.
Wow.
You can be in the middle of a forest, and then 15 minutes later, you're in downtown Helsinki. It's really neat.
Yeah, I had one night in Oslo after traveling to somewhere else in Norway for a corporate job, actually. And I just loved the vibe. Just forest everywhere. Forests and fjords. It was great.
It is. And I'm with you on Japan. We just started watching Shogun on TV, and I'm like, I still want to go. All right. The second question is, who is a fantastic communicator? And it can be someone in your personal life or a public figure.
Okay. I'm going to go with someone I imagine none of your audience will be aware of, but there's a remarkable, used to be a politician, but I think she's actually quit now, lady called Mary Black. That's a Gaelic name, Mhairi. And she was a young politician who has an incredibly strong Scottish accent, but just spoke so passionately and authentically about everything they believed in. So I always enjoyed listening to them because I knew they spoke from the heart and they didn't care what anyone else thought of them. They just spoke completely from the heart. And the odds were stacked against them in a parliamentary kind of situation, surrounded by old men speaking in a particular way. And this person just stood up and brought their authentic accent and beliefs to the chamber. And I've just always respected that.
Nice. All right. And the last question is, what is one piece of communication advice that you think we can all benefit from?
I think... Remember that you are there for a reason in this communication. It comes back to the idea that why did they not ask you to send it an email? Because for some reason you need to be there. So it's about valuing your whole self and your whole presence in the communication and making sure your voice reflects that.
So I'm getting the theme of presence and authenticity throughout this entire conversation.
I kind of hate the word authentic. It's a bit of a buzzword at the moment, but I don't think there's a better one. I think there's a lady called Samara Bay who has a great book called Permission to Speak, and I'm paraphrasing now, but she says something like, being authentic is saying something that you believe in like you mean it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, I'm waffling now. Like a great communicator, waffling away.
Yeah, it's perfect. Very authentic. All right. We are done for the day. I really appreciate you coming on here, Nic. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Neuroconversant Leadership. If you found this beneficial, can you do me one small favor? It'll be quick, I promise. Can you go and give this podcast a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever it is that you listen before doing anything else? Unless you're driving. If you're driving, then I need you to keep driving. And then when you're done and parked, then go ahead and give me a review. Hopefully 5 stars, but whatever you are comfortable honestly giving. Thank you and have a great day.